Anyone living in a semi-rural area that's far from a private hospital has been in a situation where one hospital ride depletes thousands of rands worth of medical aid cover for that year, leaving you thinking twice the next time that you need emergency care. But why is this? How does a service that is supposed to be essential and accessible for everyone end up feeling like a luxury? To answer that question, let's have a conversation. Let's talk about the state of public and private ambulances in this country and discover how this system ended up making emergency medical care feel out of reach for ordinary people. Before we get into the video, if you are looking for a job or you are a contractor looking for trustworthy employees, I have the solution for you. It's called JULUKAWORX.co.za, the sponsor of the channel. JULUKAWORX is an online platform designed to connect skilled artists and skilled individuals with contractors and companies who actually need their expertise. If you are a job seeker, simply go to JULUKAWORX.co.za, create an account with them, sign up for an account with them, and either number one, wait for job opportunities to come to you because contractors are actively looking for employees on there, or number two, you can go on and search for roles that you think you are qualified for. Make sure you go create an account with JULUKAWORX.co.za if you are either looking for a job or you are looking to hire people. Thank you very much to JULUKAWORX for sponsoring the channel, and back to the video. The majority of the cost that you're paying for when you pay for an ambulance in South Africa comes down to what kind of help they gave you during that emergency situation. And excuse the quite loud music, I can hear it quite audibly. I'm not sure what it sounds like on the mic. Excuse that. People are having church quite close to my house and I have to record right now because my schedule is very tight. So if you hear an African church while I am talking, that is why. Moving on. So yeah, the price of an ambulance in South Africa is dependent on what kind of life support that they give you. And there are three kind of levels of life support in South Africa. There is basic life support, there is intermediate life support, and there is advanced life support. Basic life support is basically when they don't need to do any kind of invasive treatment on you. This is when they don't need to pierce your skin, for example, in order to treat you. So think of maybe a stroke or a heart attack, stuff like that. That is basic life support. They're not going to cut you open. And on the other side of that, there is advanced life support. So this is where they need to pierce your skin in order to administer help to you. And an example of this is if you have a collapsed lung, they need to actually cut into your chest and reinflate your lung to keep you alive. That is the kind of the most extreme form of help that EMS can give you. Now, for private ambulances in South Africa, the cost of life support from basic all the way to advanced is gazetted to have a upper limit of 4,300 rand. So you're not going to pay any more than 4,300 rand for life support. Now, on top of life support, there is also the cost of the distance traveled, which is billed from around 32 rands to around 54 rands per kilometer, depending on the type of treatment that they gave you. And there's also the resuscitation cost. So if you saw Jesus for a moment there, your heart stopped beating, you have to pay 5,000 rands if they had to bring you back to this mortal coil. Those costs are for private healthcare. Those are for private ambulances for people with medical aid. But there's also costs associated with public health care as well. You know, contrary to my belief, you have to actually pay for public ambulances. I did not know that. I am very surprised. Now, these are fixed costs according to the uniform patient fee schedule that is kind of set by medical aid providers and board of healthcare funders. And as of 2022, it would cost you 461 of your fine South African rands for a ambulance ride under 100 kilometers. And depending on what kind of life support you need, you could expect to pay anywhere from 1,250 to 2,800 rands in life support cost as well. And on top of that, if there is a specialist medical practitioner that is needed to treat you, add on another 3,000 rands on top of that as well. And worst of all, if you need air transportation, you're in a really bad situation and you need to get to a hospital really badly, you would have hoped that they didn't help you and you actually died, because you're going to end up paying 14,000 rands per hour of flight. Yeah, no, machine, let me go. I'd rather just see the pearly gates than pay 14,000 rands for a helicopter ride. Insanity. Now, yes, you do have to pay for public ambulances in South Africa, but just because you can't afford one everyone, for example, doesn't mean that they're not going to give you help. They are going to give you help. Public ambulances, at least, they prioritize helping you first, and then later on they can determine whether or not you have to pay them or not. This is because not everyone is paying. It wouldn't make sense to make someone living in poverty, someone who's living with under 3,000 rands per month, pay for a 14,000 rand helicopter ride. So there are specific people who qualify for free funded public medical health care. But yes, that is what you could expect to pay for an ambulance ride in both the private and public sector in South Africa. Now that we know what it costs, let's ask the question of why is it so expensive? Why is medical care so expensive to obtain? Not really medical care, but emergency medical care. Why are ambulances so expensive in this country? Well, one of the main reasons why ambulances are so expensive in this country is that it's just business, baby. It's just business. Ambulances are expensive, and medical care itself is just expensive on its own. Not even solely in South Africa. This is a global thing. Medical care is really expensive. Good quality medical care is really expensive. So when you own a, let's say, an EMS company, and according to immediatemedical.co.za, you pay 500,000 rands for your ambulance, not to mention the staff that you have to pay, not to mention the equipment that you have to fit into that ambulance, not to mention all of the costs associated with making that ambulance actually operate legally as an ambulance in South Africa. When you own that kind of business and you have those kinds of overhead costs, your first priority is going to be making money, unfortunately. So that is one of the main reasons why it is so expensive, why the service itself is so expensive. The second reason why it's so expensive is that there is a general lack of competition in the South African ambulance industry, I should call it, because medical aid companies have specific companies that they've signed with, specific ambulance providers, specific EMS providers that they have signed with, that they will give their customers their numbers off whenever the customer needs an ambulance. And customers can find themselves in situations where medical aid providers only pay like 40 to 60% of the account if they call another company that isn't the one that is kind of prescribed to them by their insurer. But there is a caveat to this. If you were unconscious and someone else called an ambulance on your behalf and it wasn't the company that your medical aid gave to you, your medical aid provider is just going to pay the entire amount. I mean, it's not like you could just wake up, give them the number of the ambulance they're supposed to call, and then just fall back into unconsciousness. I think that's fair that they kind of give you leeway in that way. But then there is another caveat to the original caveat, which is that the ambulance that transported you needs to explain when they're claiming from your insurance what happened, that you were unconscious and all of that. And knowing how medical aid providers generally operate just in the world with what has been happening in the last few years, I think we know that that would not be an ideal situation for you or your wallet. And the third and final reason why EMS services are so expensive in South Africa is that there is a general shortage of public ambulances in South Africa. See, in May 2018, the Treatment Action Campaign released reports on the state of ambulances in South Africa in all of our provinces. And the reports showed that there was a significant shortage of not only ambulances in South Africa, but EMS personnel as well. There's supposed to be around 5,700 ambulances on South African roads, but as of this report in 2018, there were only 1,971 active ambulances on our roads, which is about a third of what is supposed to be out there. And as a result of that, half of ambulance call-outs in urban areas in South Africa can result in up to 30-minute wait time. It's even worse in rural areas where 67% of people who need emergency medical care can end up waiting up to an hour or more for an ambulance. An hour or more for an ambulance when you need emergency medical care. It's just absolutely ridiculous. And because we don't have the amount of ambulances that we're supposed to have, number one, and we don't have enough personnel to man those ambulances, number two, there is a huge demand for private sector emergency care, something that they cannot keep up with. They literally can't keep up with the demand for ambulances because of how broken our public EMS system is. And obviously, the law of supply and demand, when there is overwhelming demand, prices are going to go up to reflect that as well. Not to mention the fact that there is a fundamental lack of competition with medical aid providers having their own companies that they have listed. And I think we can kind of see why ambulances are generally so expensive in this country. So yes, now that we know what ambulances cost and why they cost so much, let's ask the question of who is supposed to pay that money. Now, You might answer that question and say that medical aid is supposed to pay, obviously, right? Okay, fine, but there is a lot more to that than just the blanket answer of medical aid. Now, obviously, yes, if you are a member of a medical aid scheme, a majority of the cost of an ambulance is going to fall to your medical aid. And the reason why I say a majority of the cost and not all the cost is that sometimes you're going to call a ambulance company that is not signed with your medical aid provider, and they're only going to pay a portion of it, like we said, around 60% of the cost. Or just sometimes you won't have enough cover to fully pay everything off with the ambulance company. For example, if you are air transported in a private helicopter ambulance, that could reach into the tens of thousands of rands, something that might deplete, like fully deplete your medical aid before you even get to hospital. And unfortunately, the rest of that bill is going to be your responsibility. Same applies when you call a company that is not signed with you medical aid practitioner and they only pay a portion. The rest of that money is going to be your responsibility. Even worse, when you don't have medical aid, totally all of that money is your responsibility. All of it. No one is going to subsidize anything. You will owe that ambulance provider 100% of what they charged you whenever they transported you. Now, obviously, ambulance companies aren't financial institutions, so you can't really make a payment plan with them. You have to make a payment plan for their collector, which makes the whole process just cost way more. If you've been in a bad financial situation and you've been behind on a few of your debit orders, you know that collectors are going to add on their fee on top of what you owed, further just increasing the amount of liability that you are going to face if you don't have medical aid and you want a private ambulance. Now, let's say it's New Year's Eve, boma 11 p.m. So you've had a few drinks now, family is surrounding you, and you know you're having fun. You're having a lot of fun, and you decide, you know, for more fun, you take the ladder and you climb up onto the roof because this year you're going to shoot your fireworks off the roof, because you want to do that for some reason. Now, because you've had a few drinks, the ladder slips while you're on like the last step and you fall down, and let's say you break a rib. Right, this went from being a joke to being a bit dark, but stay with me, I'm going somewhere with it. Fine, now you've broken your rib, you're laying there hissing, bleeding internally, generally just, you know, regretting all of the life decisions that have led you to this point. And someone calls a private ambulance to your house. Now, they get to your house and you tell them, hey, I don't have the money to pay for a private ambulance, because you watch C&J Holdings and you know that a private ambulance costs you money, right? You refuse their medical care. You have the right to refuse that medical care, despite the fact that you are now slowly but surely dying. You have the right to refuse medical care, but now the ambulance provider is faced with a dilemma. See, if that medic sees that you have life-threatening injuries, you know, broken your rib and dying and such, them ignoring that simply because you rejected their medical care would be a violation of the Health Professional Council of South Africa. They are professionally obliged to help you if you are in a life-threatening situation, but then now you've refused it because you know you can't pay. It's a bit of a dilemma. I mean, yes, business is business. They want their money. At the end of the day, nothing is going to be free, but you are also in danger. You know, your life is in danger as well. It's kind of like that gray area, awkward gray area nyana, that exists there. So you can reject it, yes. The question, if you had not grasped it from my long example there, was what if you refuse their medical care because you know that it's expensive? Yes, you can refuse it, but then it is going to be on the medical practitioner himself, the medic that is there on the scene, to decide whether or not to help you based on how life-threatening your injuries are. If they're not life-threatening, they're not going to help you. They're going to leave you alone and not charge you anything. But like we said in the example, if you're sitting there with a broken rib and there's blood coming out of your nose and ears, then they're going to be obliged to help you. And once they help you, I'm assuming you're going to have to pay either way. So yeah, that is about everything that you need to know about why ambulances are so expensive in South Africa. Comes down to just the government failing us once again, like they're failing us in policing, like they're failing us in roads, like they're failing us in basically everything in this country. But I hope that this video has enlightened you a bit more and helped you in a certain way, provided value in your life. Thank you very, very much for watching, and until the next one, goodbye.